Good morning to all. Hi, good morning to all. In last class, I have covered some sympathetic and parasympathetic nerve region and sympathetic and parasympathetic nerve distribution also. And what is the differences between sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, both structurally and functionally. Uh, So in today's class, I will discuss about neurotransmitters. Okay, what is the definition of neurotransmitter and what is the criteria of neurotransmitter and how it is released from the presynaptic neuron and what is the classification of neurotransmitter and what is the location of neurotransmitters and their functions. Okay, so neurotransmitter, first what is the definition? So the definition of neurotransmitter. So neurotransmitter is a chemical substance. Okay, so that chemical substance that act as a mediator. Okay, neurotransmitter is nothing but it is a chemical substance. So that substance it is act as a mediator for the transmission of nerve impulses from one neuron to another neuron through a synapse. That is called as neurotransmitters. Okay, neurotransmitter is nothing but it is a chemical molecule or chemical substance. It is stored in synaptic vesicle. So, okay, the synaptic vesicle is present in synaptic end bulb. The synaptic end bulb is present at axon nerve terminals. Okay, and main purpose of neurotransmitter is it is required for the transmission of nerve impulses from one neuron to another neuron. Okay, and next thing is what is the main criteria of the neurotransmitters? Okay, so it must be produced by neuron. Okay, neurotransmitter must be produced by neuron and it must be released by neuron, and after release of a neurotransmitter it must bind with the target area and it produces the biological effect. Okay, after showing this effect, okay, after production of that biological response, then that neurotransmitter it must be activated. Okay, so the four main criteria is there. Neurotransmitter it must be produced by neuron and it must be released by neuron. After release, then it must act on target area, then it produces the biological effect, and after effect it must be inactivated. Okay, and what is the transport and release of neurotransmitters? Okay, so neurotransmitter is produced by the cell bodies of neuron. Okay, the neuron consists of cell bodies and axons. Okay, so neurotransmitters is produced in cell bodies. Okay, so this one is axon nerve terminal. Neurotransmitters is produced in cell bodies, then after the main site of production of neurotransmitter is the cell bodies, and it will be transmitted to the it will be transmitted along the axon. Okay, and it is transmitted to another neuron. Okay, and at the end of the axon nerve terminal, okay, this one is at the end of axon nerve terminal. So this axon nerve terminal, so this in this axon nerve terminal consists of synaptic vesicles is there. Okay, so within that synaptic vesicle they consist of neurotransmitters. So with the help of stimulus, okay, or after arrival of nerve impulse, okay, after arrival of nerve impulse at the end of the axon nerve terminal, then what will happen? The synaptic vesicles it will be open and it releases the neurotransmitters. Okay, then that neurotransmitter is released into synaptic cleft. Okay, this synaptic cleft means it is a space. The space is present between presynaptic neuron and postsynaptic neuron. Then the released neurotransmitter. See here, the released neurotransmitter it binds with receptors. Okay, so this receptors is present on the postsynaptic neuron. After binding with the postsynaptic receptor, the postsynaptic neuron consists of receptor. Okay, so that signal molecule, that neurotransmitter molecule, it binds with the receptor, then some effect it will be produced. Okay, so neurotransmitter, the site of synthesis of neurotransmitter is cell bodies of the neuron, and when stimulus is arrived at the axon nerve terminal, nothing but any electrical impulse is arrived at the axon nerve terminal, then what will happen? The synaptic vesicle, it will be open and releases the neurotransmitter. Then neurotransmitter released into synaptic left. Then the neurotransmitter is binds with the receptor. After binding with the receptor is located on postsynaptic neuron. Then it shows the effect, okay, and shows the action. After showing the action, so after the execution of action, okay, after the execution of the action, the neurotransmitters is inactivated by three mechanisms. Okay, so how it is inactivated? It is destroyed or disintegrated by specific enzymes. Okay, after execution of the neurotransmitter action, then it is destroyed and disintegrated by some specific enzymes. Okay, and it is engulfed or removed by astrocytes. Astrocytes is nothing but astrocytes is example of neuroglias. Okay, and it is removed by third mechanism is it is removed by means of reuptake into the axon terminal. Okay, reuptake into the axon terminal. So the inactivation of neurotransmitters is occurs by three mechanism. It is destroyed by enzymes, or it is engulfed or removed by astrocytes. And third one is it is removed by the reuptake process. So what do you mean by reuptake process? So the reuptake of neurotransmitter. Reuptake is a process, okay, so by which the neurotransmitters is taken back from, okay, the neurotransmitters is taken back from synaptic left. Okay, neurotransmitters are taken back from synaptic left into the axon terminal after execution of its action. Okay, that is called as reuptake. Reuptake means it is a process, okay, after in this by which neurotransmitters it is taken back from, okay, neurotransmitters is taken back from synaptic left into, see here, this one is synaptic left, from synaptic left into axon terminal, okay, after execution of its action. So the reuptake process involves a specific carrier protein for each neurotransmitter. So for each neurotransmitter, there is a specific carrier protein is there. Okay, so that things we will discuss in further classes. Okay, what is the names of that specific carrier proteins? Okay, so the reuptake means is a process by which neurotransmitter is taken back from synaptic left into axon nerve terminal after execution of its action. And the reuptake process involves a specific carrier protein for each neurotransmitters. Next, coming to the classification of neurotransmitter. Neurotransmitters classified as chemical classification. There are two kinds of classifications. Is there chemical classification and functional classification. So first one is chemical classification. So first thing is choline derivatives. Okay, so choline is nothing but one kind of nutrient. Okay, this nutrient is found in milk products and vegetables. So the choline derivatives, it is example of this choline derivatives is acetylcholine. Next, biogenic amines. Okay, so biogenic amines is nothing but modified amino acids because of they consist of biogenic amines is nothing but it is a biogenic substance. Okay, biogenic amine is nothing but biogenic substance, and they consist of one or more amino group. They consist of one or more amino group. So that's why it is considered. It is also known as modified amino acids. So these modified amino acids, they are involved in slow synaptic transmission. Okay, that are involved in slow synaptic transmission. And examples of biogenic amines is catecholamines. Okay, so catecholamines are produced from adrenal medulla. Adrenal medulla is a part of adrenal gland. Adrenal gland is located on the surface of the kidneys. Okay, example is dopamine, norepinephrine, and epinephrine. Next is serotonin. Serotonin also known as 5-hydroxytryptamine and histamine. Okay, so these are the example. Catecholamines and serotonin and histamines are examples of biogenic amines, also known as modified amino acids. Next, amino acids. Amino acids means what? It is a simple organic compound. So this simple organic compound contains two groups, that is carboxyl group and amino group. So these amino acids involved in fast synaptic transmission. Okay, biogenic amines are involved in slow synaptic transmission, but amino acids are involved in fast synaptic transmission. Either it shows the inhibitory action or excitatory in action. Okay, so examples of amino acids here: GABA means gamma amino butyric acid, and glycine and aspartate and glutamate. Okay, so these are the examples of amino acids. Next, neuropeptides. Okay, so neuropeptides are formed by short chain peptides. Okay, neuropeptides are formed by short chain polypeptides. Sorry, short chain polypeptides. These are the slow acting synaptic transmission. Okay, these are involved in slow synaptic transmission. Okay, these are involved in slow synaptic transmission. And examples of neuropeptides is substance P and endorphins and enkephalins, somatostatin, gastrin, cholecystokinin, oxytocin, vasopressin, and luteinizing hormone releasing hormone, LHRH means luteinizing hormone releasing hormone. So these are the examples of neuropeptides. Okay, substance P, endorphins, and enkephalins. Somatostatin, gastrin, cholecystokinin, oxytocin, vasopressin, luteinizing hormone, and luteinizing hormone releasing hormone. Okay, not luteinizing hormone releasing hormone. Next, purines. Purines, example adenosine and adenosine triphosphate, and gases and lipids. Nitric oxide, carbon monoxide, and cannabinoids. So gases are nitric oxide and carbon monoxide. Lipids is cannabinoids. So this one is chemical classification. So how many categories is there? 6 categories. Enti choline derivatives, biogenic amines, amino acids, neuropeptides. Neuropeptides is formed by short chain polypeptides, purines, gases, and lipids. Next, functional classification. Okay, so the functional classification of neurotransmitters. So they're divided to 3 main categories. That is excitatory neurotransmitter and inhibitory neurotransmitter and excitatory and inhibitory neurotransmitters. Okay, here, so that excitatory neurotransmitters, it may leads to depolarization. Okay, so that excitatory neurotransmitters are promote the generation of the electrical signals. Okay, excitatory neurotransmitters are promote the generation of electrical signals. And examples of excitatory neurotransmitters is glutamate, aspartate, serotonin, histamine, adenosine triphosphate, and carbon monoxide. Okay, and inhibitory neurotransmitters, it may lead to what? Hyperpolarization. And inhibitory neurotransmitters are prevents the generation of electrical signals. Okay, excitatory neurotransmitters are it promote the generation of electrical signals. Inhibitory neurotransmitters are prevents the generation of electrical signals. So inhibitory neurotransmitters, it may lead to what? Hyperpolarization. Examples is glycine and GABA aminobutyric acid, and taurine. And next one is excitatory and inhibitory neurotransmitter, third category. So it may lead to depolarization and hyperpolarization depending upon the type of receptor binding. Okay, depending upon the type of receptor binding. So this kind of neurotransmitter, it may show, it may lead to what? Depolarization or repolarization, depending upon the type of receptor binding. Okay, so the thing is, we will discuss in further classes about receptors, type of binding, excitatory and inhibitory. Okay, so excitatory and inhibitory means it may leads to depolarization or repolarization or hyperpolarization, depending upon the type of receptor binding. Examples of excitatory and inhibitory neurotransmitters is acetylcholine, epinephrine, dopamine, norepinephrine. Epinephrine is also known as adrenaline. Norepinephrine is also known as noradrenaline, and nitric oxide, endorphins, and enkephalins, substance P, and cholecystokinin. Okay, so this is a function classification of neurotransmitters. And next thing is general outlay of efferent autonomic nervous system. Okay, general outlay of efferent autonomic nervous system. So in this, this one is somatic. Okay, in somatic nervous system. Okay, peripheral nervous system is divided into two types: somatic nervous system and autonomic nervous system. So in somatic nervous system, the somatic neurons are directly releases the which neurotransmitter, that is acetylcholine. ACH means acetylcholine, and that acetylcholine is binds with what kind of receptors? There is a nicotinic receptors. Okay, note down the name of the receptor is nicotinic receptors. Okay, so these nicotinic receptors, they are present on the skeletal muscles. Okay, somatic motor neurons are directly releases the acetylcholine. Okay, there is no autonomic ganglia here. Okay, ANS consists of autonomic ganglion. So presynaptic neuron and postsynaptic neuron is there. In somatic motor neuron, okay, the somatic motor neurons are in somatic nervous system. In somatic motor neuron are directly releases the one neurotransmitter that is known as acetylcholine, and that acetylcholine is obviously binds with the nicotinic receptor, and the receptor is present on skeletal muscle. So effect like a excitatory effect, either contraction effect. Okay, acetylcholine effect on skeletal muscle is contraction. Okay, and next coming to autonomic nervous system. So here parasympathetic nervous system is the sympathetic nervous system. So in parasympathetic nervous system, the parasympathetic, this one is this blue color line is presynaptic neuron. Okay, N means nicotinic receptors. Okay, so this round thing is ganglion, autonomic ganglion, and this green line is postganglionic neuron. Okay, and this parasympathetic preganglionic neurons are these are extended from the CNS. Okay, the cell bodies of preganglionic neurons are extended from the CNS. So here the preganglionic parasympathetic preganglionic neurons are releases the what kind of neurotransmitter, that is acetylcholine. Okay, so that acetylcholine is binds with what kind of receptor? Nicotinic receptors. Okay, that receptors is located on the autonomic ganglion. Okay, so the receptors are located on autonomic ganglion. Next, this preganglionic nerve terminals. Okay, parasympathetic preganglion nerve terminals make a synapse with postganglionic neurons. Okay, in which region? Autonomic ganglion region. Okay, in autonomic ganglion region, the presynaptic preganglion neurons make a synapse with postganglionic neurons. Okay, then afterwards, these postganglionic neurons are releases the what kind of neurotransmitter? Same acetylcholine neurotransmitters. Okay, so these preganglionic neurons are receive the signal from CNS. Okay, so then that information is carries towards the effector organs. Okay, so first it is make a synapse with postganglionic neuron in autonomic ganglia. Okay, so in that time the preganglionic neurons are releases the acetylcholine. Okay, then that acetylcholine is binds with nicotinic receptor. That receptor is located on the autonomic ganglion. Then afterward that signal it will be received by postganglionic neuron. Then that postganglionic neurons is releases the same acetylcholine neurotransmitter. Then the acetylcholine neurotransmitters in this binds with what kind of receptors? That is muscarinic receptor. M means muscarinic, N means nicotinic, note down. Okay, M means muscarinic receptors. And these muscarinic receptors, they are located on the heart and blood vessels. Okay, so these muscarinic receptors are present on the heart and blood vessels. Okay, this one is information about parasympathetic efferent autonomic nervous system. In efferent autonomic nervous system, the parasympathetic preganglionic neurons are uh, preganglion neurons make a synapse with autonomic ganglion, make a synapse with postganglionic neuron in a autonomic ganglion. Okay, so here acetylcholine binds with nicotinic receptors. Okay, then acetylcholine, after binding with the nicotinic receptor, that information is moves towards the affected organs through postganglionic neuron. Then postganglionic neurons are released as acetylcholine. Acetylcholine binds with the muscarinic receptor. That muscarinic receptors is present on the heart and blood vessels. Next, coming to sympathetic nervous system. In sympathetic nervous system, so this blue lines is sympathetic preganglionic neuron. So in this first thing is the sympathetic preganglion neurons are released as the acetylcholine. Okay, so that acetylcholine binds with what kind of receptors? That is nicotinic receptors. Okay, that nicotinic receptors is present in autonomic ganglion. Okay, so after binding with the after binding with the nicotinic receptors, then what will happen? This the preganglionic sympathetic preganglion neuron make a synapse with postganglionic neurons. Okay, here the postganglionic neurons are receive the signals from the autonomic ganglion. Then this sympathetic postganglionic neuron is releases the major neurotransmitter that is known as NA. NA means noradrenaline. Okay, NA means noradrenaline, also known as adrenergic neurotransmitter. Okay, so this adrenergic neurotransmitter binds with what kind of receptors? That is alpha receptors and beta receptors. So these alpha receptors and beta receptors are present on the heart and blood vessels. So the location of alpha and beta receptors in heart and blood vessels. Next thing is the sympathetic preganglionic neurons are releases the acetylcholine. Okay, so it make a synapse with autonomic gang. It make a synapse with postganglionic neuron in a autonomic ganglion. Okay, here the sympathetic preganglionic neurons are released as the acetylcholine. Okay, that acetylcholine is binds with nicotinic receptor. Then that information is signal is received by here. Received by here some in sympathetic nervous system also there is a release of some minor cholinergic neurotransmitter. Okay, the minor cholinergic neurotransmitter is acetylcholine. Okay, especially in sweat glands. Okay, so especially in sweat glands, the sympathetic preganglionic neurons are released as the acetylcholine. Okay, minded, especially in sweat glands. So sympathetic preganglionic neurons are released as the acetylcholine, and that acetylcholine binds with the nicotinic receptors in autonomic ganglion. Then it then that postganglion neurons is released as the minor amount of the cholinergic neurotransmitter that is known as acetylcholine. Okay, so that acetylcholine binds with muscarinic receptors. That muscarinic receptors is present in sweat glands. Okay, and third thing here, the sympathetic preganglion neuron is releases the acetylcholine, and acetylcholine is binds with nicotinic receptors. Okay, so that nicotinic receptors is directly is present in adrenal medulla. Okay, so this is not a autonomic ganglion. So this is the sympathetic preganglion neuron is releases the acetylcholine, and that acetylcholine is binds with nicotinic receptors. So the nicotinic receptors are directly present in adrenal medulla. Means adrenal medulla means what? It is a adrenal cortex, and adrenal medulla is a part of adrenal gland. That gland it will be located on the surface of the kidneys. Okay, so here the sympathetic preganglion neurons releases acetylcholine. That acetylcholine is binds with nicotinic receptors. that receptors on that nicotinic receptors are present in the adrenal medulla. Then after that, adrenaline, noradrenaline, that things will directly released into the bloodstream. Okay, so here there is no another thing, there is no postganglionic neuron. Okay, so because of that nicotinic receptors are directly located on the surface of adrenal gland, adrenal medulla. Okay, so that's why the sympathetic preganglion neurons are releases the acetylcholine. The acetylcholine binds with the nicotinic receptor. That nicotinic receptors are after binding of acetylcholine with the nicotinic receptors, then the receptors is located on the surface of adrenal medulla, and this acetylcholine is stimulate the adrenal medulla to release the adrenaline and noradrenaline hormones. Okay, and adrenaline and noradrenaline are directly released into the bloodstream. Okay, so this one is general outlay of efferent autonomic nervous system. Okay, so in sympathetic nervous system, so there is a directly release of the acetylcholine. Okay, that acetylcholine act on nicotinic receptor. That receptors is present on the skeletal muscles. Okay, in autonomic nervous system, there is a sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system is there. In parasympathetic nervous system, there is release of acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is binds with postganglionic, make a synapse with postganglionic neurons. Okay, then acetylcholine is binds with the muscarinic receptor. The receptor is located in heart and blood vessels. So here, all sympathetic and parasympathetic. Okay, all sympathetic and parasympathetic preganglionic neurons are releases the acetylcholine. Okay, and parasympathetic postganglionic neuron is only releases the acetylcholine. Okay, but in sympathetic postganglionic neuron, okay, in sympathetic postganglionic neurons here, in adrenergic system, there is a release of noradrenaline, but in sweat gland region, what will happen in sweat gland region? Sweat gland consists of muscarinic receptors. Okay, always muscarinic receptor. The sweat gland consists of muscarinic receptors. So what will happen here? That the sympathetic postganglionic neuron. Okay, the sympathetic postganglionic neurons is releases the acetylcholine only. Okay, in sympathetic nervous system, the major neurotransmitter is what? Noradrenaline. Only very minor neurotransmitter is acetylcholine. Okay, in sweat glands, consist of muscarinic receptors. Okay, so here the acetylcholine in sympathetic nervous system, the acetylcholine action on the sweat glands. Okay. Next thing is in last thing, the acetylcholine is stimulate the adrenal medulla to release the adrenaline and noradrenaline directly released into the bloodstream. Okay, because of adrenal medulla consists of nicotinic receptors. So see here, next thing, the neurotransmitters in central nervous system. Okay, so here the first neurotransmitter is acetylcholine. Okay, what is the location of acetylcholine? See this figure. Acetylcholine location is parasympathetic preganglionic neuron. Okay, and parasympathetic postganglionic neuron, and sympathetic preganglionic neurons. Okay, see here, sympathetic and parasympathetic presynaptic nerve terminals. Okay, and parasympathetic and postsynaptic nerve terminal. See, parasympathetic presynaptic nerve terminal and parasympathetic postsynaptic nerve terminal. Okay, so this one is location. So acetylcholine location in CNS. So that is cerebral cortex, hippocampus, limbic system, okay, limbic structures, and basal ganglion. And the function of the acetylcholine is sleep, arousal, pain, perception, movement, and memory. Okay. If this acetylcholine levels are increases in our nervous system, means what will happen is depression. The person may affected with the depression. If it is decreased levels, the person may affected with Alzheimer's disease, Huntington's disease. Huntington's disease is nothing but damage of nerves in brain. Okay, and Parkinson disease. Okay, in further chapters, you can study the anti-Alzheimer's drugs and anti-Parkinson drugs and anti-Huntington's disease drugs. Okay, and second one is monoamines, norepinephrine. The norepinephrine location. See, the norepinephrine location. So in parasympathetic nervous system, there is no norepinephrine. See here. Okay, in parasympathetic nervous system, there is no norepinephrine. In sympathetic nervous system, what is the location? The postganglionic or postsynaptic nerve terminals. Sympathetic, postsynaptic nerve terminals. See here, sympathetic, postsynaptic nerve terminals. Okay, so norepinephrine location in ANS is sympathetic, only sympathetic postsynaptic nerve terminals. So what is the location in CNS? So that is thalamus, hypothalamus, limbic system, hippocampus, cerebellum and cerebral cortex. And what is the function of norepinephrine? Mood, it controls the mood and cognition, perception, locomotion, cardiovascular functioning, and sleep and arousal. Okay, so these are the functions of norepinephrine. If this action, if the levels of norepinephrine is decreases, means the person may affected with depression. If norepinephrine levels is increases, means the person may affected with mania, anxiety states, and schizophrenia. Okay, these are the psychological related diseases: mania, anxiety, schizophrenia, Parkinson disease. Okay, next thing is dopamine. Okay, dopamine. It is located in CNS. In which region? Frontal cortex, limbic system, basal ganglia, thalamus, and posterior pituitary gland, and spinal cord. Okay, function is movement, coordination, emotion, voluntary judgment, and release of, it stimulates the release of prolactin also. Okay, if the levels are increases, means the if the levels are increases, means the person affected with mania and schizophrenia. If decreases, means depression and Parkinson disease. Okay, so all those diseases related to drugs. Okay, so that we will discuss in further chapters. Okay, serotonin. Okay, serotonin is also a neurotransmitter. Serotonin is a hypothalamus location. Hypothalamus, thalamus, limbic system, cerebral cortex, cerebellum, spinal cord, and the function is sleep. Okay, it controls the sleep and arousal. Libido means it controls the sexual. It is involved in sexual drive, and appetite, mood, aggression, pain, perception, coordination, and judgment. Okay, the serotonin control all those these functions. If the levels is increased, means anxiety. If the levels are decreased, means depression. Okay, the person affected with depression. Next, histamine. Okay, hypothalamus. Histamine is located in hypothalamus. If the function is wakefulness, pain, sensation, and inflammatory response. If the histamine levels is very more, means the person may affected with inflammation. Decrease the means depression. Okay, the histamine levels is decreased, means the person may affected with depression. And another neurotransmitter is that is GABA, gamma aminobutyric acid. Location is hypothalamus, hippocampus, cortex, cerebellum, all brain parts. Okay, and spinal cord also, and retina. Okay, and GABA, it is an inhibitory neurotransmitter, GABA and glycine. Okay, so this GABA and glycine is a slow down of the our body activity. Okay, and if the levels is decreases, means Huntington's disease, anxiety disorders. If the levels is increases, means if the levels is decreases means Huntington's disease, anxiety disorder, and schizophrenia, and various forms of epilepsy. Next, glycine. Okay, so that glycine, it is an inhibitory neurotransmitter. Location is spinal cord and brainstem. The function is recurrent inhibition of motor neurons. Okay, means because of this one is inhibitory neurotransmitters. So that's why it is inhibit the motor neurons. If the levels is toxic levels means the toxic levels of glycine, it causes the encephalopathy, means brain, a kind of brain damage, and decrease the levels is correlated with this spastic motor movements, means it is a one kind of movement disorder. Okay, it is one kind of movement disorder, means the person is unable to move. Okay, so the person is unable to move. That is known as spastic motor movements. And glutamate and aspartate. Okay, this is also present in cerebellum, primary sensory efferent system, hippocampus, thalamus, and hypothalamus, and spinal cord, all CNS parts. And function is it relays the sensory information and it regulates the various motor and spinal reflexes. Okay, it is involved in various motor and spinal reflexes. If the levels is increases means Huntington's disease, okay, temporal lobe epilepsy, and spinal cerebellar degeneration. Okay, so next thing, last slide is endorphins and enkephalins. These are the neuropeptides. Okay, so the neuropeptides is present in almost all brain parts, limbic system, midbrain, hypothalamus, brainstem, and it is also enkephalins is present in GIT also, not in brain parts. It is present in GIT also. Okay, and function is modulation of pain and reduces the peristalsis movement. Okay, so there is a modulation of pain and it reduces the peristalsis movements in GIT. And endorphins are enkephalin, and so these are mainly modulate the dopamine activity. The function is it modulate the dopamine activity by opioid neurotransmitter like endorphins and enkephalins. Okay, so after modulation of the dopamine activity, then what will happen? Okay, the dopamine activity is modulated in the response to this endorphins. Then what will happen? The person affected with schizophrenia. Okay, then substance P. So substance P is also present in all CNS parts, hypothalamus, thalamus, midbrain, brainstem, limbic system, basal ganglia, spinal cord, and it is found in GIT also. Okay, and salivary glands. Okay, endorphins also present in GIT, and substance P is also present in GIT and salivary glands. Function is a regulation of pain. Okay, if levels is increased means the person affected with depression. Decrease means Huntington's disease and Alzheimer's disease. And somatostatin means it is also neurotransmitter. It is present in cerebral cortex, hippocampus, thalamus, basal ganglia, brainstem, and spinal cord. The function is it stimulates the release of dopamine. Okay, the function of somatostatin is somewhat different. Okay, so it stimulates the release of dopamine. But endorphin is modulate the activity of dopamine. Somatostatin is stimulate the release of dopamine and serotonin, norepinephrine, acetylcholine, and inhibit the release of histamine and glutamate. Okay, and it is also act as neuromodulator for serotonin. Okay, it is also act as neuromodulator for serotonin in the hypothalamus. If the levels is increases means the person may affected with Huntington's disease. If it is decreases means Alzheimer's. Okay, so all this the levels of neurotransmitter, if it is increases means some kind of neurological disease will be occurs. If the levels are decreases means some kind of psychological related disease it will be happens. So in further classes, in further chapters, and I think so third and fourth chapters, then we will discuss anti-mania drugs. Okay, you can study the anti-mania drugs, schizophrenia drugs, anti-Parkinson drugs, epilepsy drugs, and antidepressant drugs. Okay, so this one is information about neurotransmitters. Okay, so this one is definition of neurotransmitter, and this one is criteria of neurotransmitter, and how it is releases from the presynaptic nerve terminals, and how it is inactivated. It is inactivated by three mechanisms, and what is the reuptake process, and the chemical classification is 6 categories is there, and in functional classification there are 3 categories is there. Okay, and this one is the most important thing, this diagram, general outlay of efferent autonomic nervous system. Okay, and here the thing is all sympathetic and parasympathetic preganglion neurons are releases the acetylcholine, but parasympathetic postganglion neurons are releases the same acetylcholine. Okay, but sympathetic postganglionic neurons are releases the major neurotransmitter is noradrenaline. It binds with alpha and beta receptors, but the minor neurotransmitter is acetylcholine. Especially the sympathetic postganglionic neurons is releases acetylcholine. That acetylcholine is binds with the muscarinic receptor. That receptor is present in sweat glands. Okay. This one is examples of neurotransmitter and their location and their possible implication for mental illness. Okay. In next class, we will discuss about neurohumoral transmission. Okay.